Yeah, this is absolutely how
Rock
we're
and
doing. We've been preparing for this for an hour.
All right. Anton, can you hear me fine? Guys can hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right.
Yep.
Thank you everyone for joining. This is the PowerAddicts Hangout for November 2019, almost around our years at like a 1 year anniversary, just 1 month away. So thank you. All right.
I got a call from this number. Yes. Hi.
All right. So as we keep getting people joining us, so for the first thing before we just start off anything else, we wanted to congratulate our new MVPs, Lisa and Tomash. I think they are on the call. Big round of applause for them.
I don't know
I
anything.
think we have a few more too. I think one is Viva Rajkumar and a couple of more business MVPs. Just didn't want to miss anybody out.
Yeah, there were a bunch of business. I think these are the people we probably know more. But yeah, congratulations to all the newly minted MVPs. And yeah, Lisa or Tomash, are you online?
That's so strange.
Yep, I am.
Yes,
Right.
and I am too.
Right.
Oh!
Congratulations!
Thank you.
Thank you for all the incredible work you guys do for the community. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep. It's all a pleasure.
All right. And before we start the Ignite kind of recap and all the crazy stuff around Ignite, is Mary, are you online? Okay. So I think I'll just cover for her and maybe she joins in later. But there's a hackathon happening in December, a hack for
I'm
good.
here.
Oh, hey.
There
Mary.
she is.
Hey, sorry about that. Mute unmute.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, so it's kind of crazy. It just kind of happened. But basically, what I'm doing is on December 7th, I'm holding what I'll call a makeshift hackathon. Kind of long story short, I got this idea from going to a couple different events and D365 Saturdays and hackathons and realized that we could gamify social environment response learning for children with autism using Face API. And basically, the app is going to have a couple different stages. It will have a learn phase, and there's like 6 basic emotions, and there'll be different video clips that will help children with autism kind of understand in more of a situational context instead of just static flashcards. I have a couple friends that have some children that vary on the autism scale. So I've seen some of their challenges. And that's kind of what also gave me some of these ideas and tried to get some feedback from them on what that might look like on learning that that emotion and what can kind of help them go to a spot where they know basically. So then the next phase is using the Face API. And basically it's saying, okay, in the first phase, we saw some pictures of what happy looks like. And in the next one, we're going to practice that application. And so a lot of things that they focus on with children with autism is what the face looks like and what it's doing. So, a smile indicates happy. So with the Face API, they can practice smiling or frowning, whatever the emotion is for, and it's going to give them back some feedback, right? Like, did it meet this passing score? And then they keep practicing that until they meet a passing level. And then the final phase is using kind of a full application process. So in the first phase, they had video clips that told them what happy was. Then the next one said, when you're happy, this is the emotion that you have. So this third phase is going to show them a happy situation. And then their task will be to, once again, take a selfie and show the correct emotion. And we know kids love playing with video games and, kind of tagging on the phone. I've reached out to some educators and they think that maybe this would be a really good process for them and their students. And long story short, it has a lot of parts and it's over my head, and I decided that it could take me a really long time to do it, but more importantly, at the end of the day, the end product that I could produce by myself compared to getting a bunch of people that are really good experts in various things involved, we'd have a better product if we got more people involved. So that's kind of where we're at, and I've got some information that I can put in the link here. Basically, I've got kind of a survey that I'm trying to organize some teams to give it some structure. We can't all have like 25 people working on the same thing. Ideally, I'd like to break it down into different areas that people are really good at. Like there's some audio, there's some just different structure pieces. So I'd like to put people on teams based off of that. We're going to use teams. I'm going to have different channels for each different team so that they can kind of work and collaborate. And there we'll use things like whiteboard so that you guys can kind of use that to hash out some things. And then we'll have a general meeting area so that we can kind of collaborate as a whole. I figure if we spend like 5 hours, I think I have it scheduled from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. on December 7th, that we'll just see what we can do. I think that if we all break down into these little teams and go at it for a couple hours, I mean, if you've been in a hackathon, you kind of realize that when you all work together, you can actually accomplish a lot more in a really short amount of time. So that's the idea. And anyone that wants to help, that'd be great.
So yeah, that's a really good idea. Just let people know how they can be a part of the hackathon. So I don't know if there's like a form or they need to just email you. Just put that link so that people can reach out to you.
Absolutely. I'll set that in there right now.
Sounds fun.
All right.
That sounds great, Mary. Thank you.
All right. So as we can see, we have almost everyone here to answer to any of your questions or anything around Ignite. The whole Power Apps, the core team is sitting right in front of us. Donna has joined us, so a big thank you to especially the whole team who's joining at midnight. It's really special. Thank you to all of you, and Donna, thank you for joining us. And I'll give it over to you. Welcome to the Power Addicts Power Platform, or whatever team you want to call this. Go ahead, and we want to hear from you.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone, for being amazing. So I know one of the things we wanted to talk about were what we thought was exciting and interesting at Ignite. And this was my first Ignite with the Power Apps, Power Platform, Power People. And what I found to be super fascinating was the sheer number of times that the community was called out, right? So there were, I think, maybe 20 talks related to the Power Platform that I went to, whether they were a big keynote or a breakout or a theater session. So I stopped by, lurked in the back, but every single freaking one of them called out this community. And that's insane. I've never seen that before. And I've worked in Microsoft for 14 years. I've never seen that before. And not just saying, hey, our community is cool, but showing all of your faces and calling out your names and putting real numbers next to how many people are in the community, how many people are active, what kinds of things you do. And that was like in Satya's keynote, it was in James's thing, it was in Charles's thing, it was in every single breakout that I went to. And I think that's kind of extraordinary. I've never seen that in any conference. So that says a lot about this community and who you are and the impact you have on the product. So thank you very much, because I've never seen that before. And I'm not just saying that. Totally true.
But what I would say is that it's not about our community. It's about all the people who aren't in it yet and getting them into it. That's what we've always been about from the very start. It's not about us. It's been about the people who aren't in our community yet. And we want more of them. We want to help more people. And we're all desperately seeking summits.
Oh, yeah.
Hey.
Desperately seeking summits.
I have it right
And so that was one thing. The second thing that happened that was really interesting was, so I gave my first demo. Of course, that was terrifying, but it went fine, ish. And I did a call out and says, hey, who wants more information, more learning content, especially beta early learning content? And I said, reach out to me on LinkedIn. And I thought maybe like 4 people would do it, because usually when I say reach out to me on LinkedIn, like 4 people do it. This time, I am not kidding you. I'm up to like 850 people reaching out and
Wow.
saying like, I want that content you talked about. I said, oh, okay, which part of beta was like, all right, that does not exist, but cool. So that's been really fascinating, because obviously there's this huge hunger from people to get more learning content. So all of you who are creating things out there, please keep doing that, because you might think like, who the hell needs more learning content? Apparently 850 people that I know of. And all of this is these are people who aren't a part of the community. These are all names I haven't heard of, and they're both people who are in the room, but people who've been watching that session on video. So just today I got pinged by like 65 people saying, I just watched the session on video and I want access to that learning content. So keep creating it. Oh my gosh, keep creating it. So all of you who, and Tomas especially, I keep pointing people to your What is a Citizen Dev blog post. So thank you for writing that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I've been pointing everybody to that blog post. I'm like, go see this.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, you've shown up in one of these internal studies too. So I'm sure someone will reach out to you about that at some point. But
Okay.
what's been super interesting is people want learning content for people who are in their specific shoes. So, we say, oh, you're an Excel expert, but what does that mean? Like, does it mean someone who's written a macro has no idea what a macro is? These are 2 very different people. So keep creating this content. We as a community need to figure out a good way to get it in one searchable place, right? Or in a searchable way, or some sort of a searchable fashion, just so people can find it, right? And I'm not saying this has to be on Microsoft property. It just has to exist somewhere so that new people who are coming from all kinds of places, whether they're coming from a product that we're familiar with or they're coming from out of nowhere, they have a path to learn whatever they need to know to solve their specific business problem. So that's been fascinating to me, just that sheer desire for learning content for all of the product suite across the board. I've had like 50 people reach out and say, where's all the Power Automate stuff? Or sorry, not Power Automate, Power Virtual Agent. People keep reaching out for Power Virtual Agent. And I'm thinking, okay, so I just know very few things there. But it's this just wicked hunger that's out there. And I think it's time we capitalize on that and, get into major creating mode. So thank you all for all the content you've created. I'm trying to keep track of them in that I think Saurabh has that giant blog post. So I keep pointing people to that. Yes, Saurabh's giant blog post.
With no help from anyone.
Yes. It has your name on it, therefore. Saurabh's giant blog post. But I think we have to figure out a good way to index all these things for various personas. So that was the second learning. The third learning I had was we say in terms of audiences that are using Power Platform, we know there's citizen devs, there's IT pros, IT admin types, and then there's pro devs. I think there's 2 categories of citizen devs. There's citizen devs who know they're citizen devs, they accept that. They're like, yep, I've worked in a company, I've had like some sort of a leadership role, I know how to use Excel, I know how to use SharePoint, I know how to use Teams, whatever it is. I buy into the fact that I'm a citizen dev. And then there's the other kind who have no idea what we're talking about. They're like, I have no idea. No, I don't go to Excel conferences. I've never been to a SharePoint Saturday. I don't know what Teams is. I don't know what Dynamics is. I think that category of people, that's probably like 2 billion people out there. And that's a lot of humans who we can potentially help, because they all have some sort of business problem and they don't know we have a solution that can probably help them. So that's an interesting category for us to think about as a whole. That's not a category that we as Microsoft have historically worked with, because by default, we work with people who are vaguely technical, right? They understand what problems they have and what kind of tool they need to solve it. So that category is really interesting. And then the other category that's interesting are the pro devs who are saying, this sounds really cool. What does this have to do with me? So there's it's at the opposite end of the spectrum, but there's a humongous opportunity there to reduce the amount of code that pro devs write So they create libraries and, modules and such that everyone can use. So those were my big 3 revelations from Ignite, and I'll be excited to see what the word is from Ignite Paris tomorrow and Thursday. So thank you very much for being so incredibly welcoming across the board. I have learned a lot in the last 3 weeks.
Thank you, Donna. Thank you for sharing that. I think what we said resonates really well with everyone here. And I know we have a lot of content, but at the same time, as you said, we need a better way to kind of present it. And I'm getting some weird calls.
You sound so
Sorry about that. All right. So, before I just wanted to kind of have us to have a roundtable here, and I know we have a lot of people to discuss Ignite. So, just to start off with, and maybe Keith, you can start. One feature that you're really excited about, and why?
Make it a good one, Keith.
I'm really excited about the rebrand of Power Auto. And I'll tell you for why.
No, seriously.
It's in all seriousness, is that people have been struggling with Flow to understand it, and from a business context, exactly what Donna was. Serious. Yeah, I'm serious, 100%. Especially Donna was saying before about the no dev, no idea, no nothing. And Flow didn't really make any sense, but Automate does. Now you've got the whole RPA thing in there as well. And if I look at the glorious business that I work for, that's a big deal. That's now a really seriously big deal. So them understanding what it means just from hearing it, because Flow, they were like, well, I don't understand what that means, Keith. You and all your app stuff and that, I don't get it. But if you say to them Automate, they understand what that means. So yeah, I think it's really good. That and Spaces are all good. So happy about that.
Keith, have you used the UI Flow yet?
No, mate, because we're all Windows 7. Boom!
Oh! No! Bad.
Windows 10 only.
You can't exit your legacy application.
Your legacy app and your legacy OS.
I demoed an app today that launches Excel. From Excel 2010 launches PowerApps. For the URI string, at my dodgy demo, and I got to say it blew some minds because it was for SharePoint on-prem guys here at the.
Oh, that's right. Our audience is a lot.
Our audience is a lot of SharePoint on-prem, and they had no idea what PowerApps is. So that was really good to see that.
It opens Netscape Navigator.
I was really pleased. It was in IE7.
Keith, I'm coming to your office and upgrading you. I just can't handle this right now. I'm getting the twitches.
I'm twitching.
Yeah, but it's our bus that you're coming on and it will never get there.
Don't sit too close, Christina. It's catching.
All right. I know the whole team over there, because you guys could go next. One feature that you guys are excited about? Not the PowerApps team.
They're not biased.
Wait. You have to pause when you say instead of PowerApps, it's Power Apps.
Power. Wait for it. Apps.
I'm going to interrupt that and I'll hijack the call. And it's not something that was announced at Ignite, but hopefully this call. It's literally being rolled out tonight. It's an experimental feature. You can turn on the component library, but you'll get the new insert pane over to the left, which has all components, your custom, the standard controls, PCF, AI builder, everything is searchable. You can drag and drop it onto the canvas, and it will land where it goes. You can even drag it into a gallery, into the template.
We'll take that.
We'll take
That is literally deploying as we speak. Into
Wow.
So get in and turn that feature on. I will shamelessly make that plug on this call. Go use it because it's one of my favorites.
That's why we had to add the space.
Yeah.
It's funny how you added the space in PowerAddicts. I missed the bigger box. That tiny
bigger box.
We're fixing that as well, Keith. Turn on the experimental formula bar. But drag and drop. Give me a drag and drop and love it.
I think Keith's referring to the Power Automate small box.
Yeah. Wearing a vintage t-shirt.
Vintage t-shirt.
Both are. I got the vintage hat up in my room.
Anyone else who wants to share?
Anybody other than Clay?
Got any of other Clay's features that they'd like to talk about?
So I'll add one. I think the one that really excites me is the guest share with a canvas. That's humongous. That's been an ask for a while. And once I saw that the previous application named Flow invited guests in, I knew it was going to come eventually. But this is a huge game changer, especially for the people that are using SharePoint. And those who don't understand SharePoint framework, but they do understand Power Apps. So there's some things that we can do on that end. So this is it's a big thing. Now, I'm not for sure that many people on the SharePoint side even understand that it's available. So we'll keep pushing that out on Twitter until it catches on. But it's a really big thing for me.
What are we gonna have a PowerAddicts tenant that everybody's a guest in?
Yeah.
Yes, do that.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Need that.
Huh? Write that down.
Yes, I yelled at Sarab and Samir and Brian in our last meeting. I said, "Why do we have no tenant?" And they were like, "Why are you yelling at me about this?"
Because we're all into governance. We're all into governance.
You really seem like the government sort.
Yeah.
He is. It's
The
true.
Windows 7 government.
I'm gonna upgrade your Windows 7. I can't.
He's the insider.
I'm gonna steal his laptop while I'm here and upgrade it before he flies home.
Yeah, exactly. I'll put you in Canary Ring too. Then you'll see.
There we go.
Yeah, I guess I can go next. I think I'm excited about the UI flows, especially to automate a bunch of the web stuff. Like I was just testing it out today, and like every time I create a YouTube video to create the thumbnail in Canva, I was just testing it out. It was working pretty well. I mean, if I'm already logged in and everything. So yeah, especially for personal stuff, I don't know from an organization standpoint because most of our stuff is on cloud. But yeah, there's a lot of things which I can see a lot of people taking advantage of UI flows, RPA, whatever you're gonna call it. Yeah, super excited about that. All right, anyone else? Any other feature that we didn't talk about or missed out?
How
I
come
still would love
nobody's
to be able to
talking
drag my
about Power
cover.
Virtual Agents?
What's that?
Say what?
Clifton, how you doing, man?
How come? Yes. Hello, hi. This is actually the first time that I am participating in a call. Most of you always see me on Twitter. Hello, hi. So this year I couldn't attend the Ignite, but I did follow from a distance. And I was really excited about the Power Virtual Agents because I can already imagine scenarios and where, for example, I don't know how you experience it, but how I experience is when, for example, you want to build a bot in Teams. You need to be like a PhD. You need a letter from God to build a bot in Teams. And I think what I saw, they do have plans to enable a Teams channel for Power Virtual Agents. So I think that will create a huge opportunity for business users to build bots via Power virtual agents. It's like low code and bot building. I think that will be huge. And when you can integrate it with Teams, you can integrate it with Power Automate. You can integrate it with adaptive cards. And then I think about Thomas, adaptive cards. I think there will be this. I think this will be huge. It will create a huge opportunity. I think this will be huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm also looking forward to have adaptive cards in Power Virtual Agent. It's something I'm really missing out here.
Hey, Clifton, I put a note in or actually put an IM in the notes. There's directions for that too. So let me know if you're having problems with that, and I can actually run that down for you.
Chuck.
Hey, Chuck.
Guys!
Oh.
Hello.
You're the only one that I can front on the call. So just stop talking and let me talk.
Wait, God, was that you?
Yes. The thing I was going to say specifically for Virtual Agent is that team has an awesome amount of IP. Like if you go to Microsoft.com and you chat with the bot, that is the Virtual Agent tech that's being used in the background.
Millions of chats.
So like they have some astronomical amount of IP. They release like 2% of it as part of their preview. So like if you look at it and you're like, oh, it's interesting, but it does some retail chatbot and but you think it would apply, email that team. If you can't get onto them, email us and we'll connect you. Like they have a phenomenal amount of IP available, but we're even talking to them about bringing them into Studio so that you have like a chatbot to help you author apps. Like they have an amazing amount of tech in the background that's not necessarily represented in what they've just released. So you should do it. Sorry, Chuck. Please continue.
Yeah, Chuck. Which one of Clay's features is your favorite?
I'm lucky enough to get to sit right next to him, so I get to hear about him every day.
Hey, you enjoy that, Chuck. Don't lie.
Walls of Advanta are very
I have to admit, I do enjoy the music, so there you go.
And adding to Cliff's point of kind of Teams chatbot, I think Teams actually is becoming like the hub, because there's a lot of features coming where now you can embed Power Apps as an app in Teams, straight from that left-hand side menu. I know Teams is coming up with like having your Yammer there, your Outlook, sharing from Outlook to Teams. So I think Teams, the integration with Teams is going to be one of the big, I would say, it's going to help because everything will be at one place. So yeah, looking forward to getting all those Teams features as well.
That's awesome. If people are doing cool stuff with Power Apps and Teams, we definitely want to hear about it and we'll amplify for sure.
Yeah.
We're investing in. So reach out, good, bad, ugly, everything in between.
I will say I worked the Power Platform Microsoft Teams booth and showing the integration of just the whole story of Power BI, Power Apps, and all of that, and Flow, sending a card to a channel and all. Very, very great response from people. Our booth was just nonstop packed. So it seemed like a very good feedback on people seeing what's happening in the direction that's going with that.
Yeah, even the sessions where we demoed the new add to Teams option from the app list, where it gives you the manifest that you can import.
We did. Yep.
99% of the response to that was, oh, I didn't even know you could do that.
That's
we saw a double-digit week-over-week bump in usage of Power Apps and Teams after that.
Well, and I could see why this is a good direction to go, just because of I deal with so many different users and people get confused. They think they say, hey, now that I have Teams, can we get rid of SharePoint, right? Or, before going to all the service links, right, it gets confusing for users. So having that end-all place to leverage that, I think we're in a good place. I mean, we still have a lot of ways to go, I think, in direction-wise, but there's so much opportunity, I think, for all of us, no matter what we do, from Power Apps to Power BI to Flow to name it to Teams Dev, all of it. I mean, this is a great opportunity, and I think that it's just going to get better and better, and all of us have a part in that.
That killed it. Hold on.
There's really interesting conversation going on right now between Chuck and Mariano in the chat. It's really interesting. Just want to call that out. So if anyone's taking a look at it, they're having this chat about Power Automate and some JSON and some other stuff in here. So yeah, interesting conversation. I'm just trying to fly on the wall right now. I just gonna put everybody on the wall too, but yeah. Good conversation.
I was gonna ask a question actually, because we were talking to a bunch of people today, and they were very much on-prem. Everyone was very much on-prem, and there was the new Power platform schematic that you've put out, which is very, very helpful, with the Power platform underlining the 3 towers of Microsoft. And then there's this other data bit off to the side. And we're talking to some people now, talking about AWS, Impala, and all these different data sources, and Oracle. And you kind of think that we might be just missing a buck a little bit, focusing on the SharePoint, SQL, CDS towers. It's like there's this whole other untapped group of people that we could be doing all this awesome stuff for, and we keep reverting back to type and saying, well, we are Microsoft lovers. We must only talk about Microsoft, and we might be missing out helping a whole bunch of people do some really amazing stuff by. I mean, there's a bunch of guys in the UK. I won't say what company are. They're a massive company. Their system of record is Impala, and they've been building Power Platform in Impala since the very beginning. So I just wonder if we're missing out on being snobbish of data source. What do you think?
I mean, throwing that question back to you, Keith, do you use the on-premise data connector?
I've got a need to. We did have a need to use it, and then we didn't have a need to use it. But I think, like, from some of those other sources that are out there, we would use Oracle if we could get IT to unlock it. But we won't talk about that. We'll say that, like, there's potentially, some really cool stuff we could do. Just thinking about, all the hack for goods and stuff we've done. If people have already got stuff there, it makes sense to go to where your data is, prove the concept, and then start the migration once you've, got some value.
Well, keep in mind, we're here. Todd had an Azure. I forgot what his session was, but nobody showed up because nobody. So being here, I forget that there's still a big majority, at least here in this part of Europe, that are on-prem.
Yeah, 25 people in a room, and 3 of them are on modern for SharePoint.
So, and I know other parts of Europe, because, I'm starting to spread out to other parts of Europe as far as speaking. And as I'm seeing that, I think in Germany too, I mean, I'm starting to see, we need to see who I can connect with that can give us some information on the different parts of the countries and who is, what's majority on-prem, what's more cloud. I think Sweden, they're moving a lot more on cloud, but I guess it depends where, you're seeing a lot of organizations in the US that are going to the cloud, but I'm seeing the differences like you here in Europe, they're not embracing the cloud as quickly.
One of the biggest users of Power Apps over on-prem Oracle is Microsoft. Inside Microsoft. Thousands of monthly active users connecting to on-prem other systems, Oracle, PeopleSoft, a bunch of custom stuff. For exactly the same reason, SAP too. Exactly the same reason. Clay's impressed. It's not what I was.
Killed it again. You did.
My fault.
Let's bring more.
Or it could be the fact that it's almost 1 a.m.
No, I mean, again, from a Microsoft perspective, not to dominate the conversation, but like But like Germany's relatively expected. They're pretty like predictable with their data governance. If there were like other European clients that you saw like predictably going to on-prem, like that's definitely a conversation we would need to have. Like we're on-prem is a thing for us. We have on-prem clients. We do a few years for them. But it's interesting to hear about like Ryan did that. That was Ryan Cunningham, PM Director of PowerAddicts.
Ryan, see you at Microsoft.
Yes. RYCU at Microsoft.com if you'd like to email him. But no, my point is like outside of Germany and others, it's actually really interesting. I personally would love to hear more about on-prem because it's an area for us that crops up every couple of years. And it's one of those ones that's really hard to prioritize. What are you laughing at?
Every couple of years, I don't believe that.
It's every now and again.
When their EA agreement is up.
That was a genuine request. Absolutely.
In terms of Ignite, then, because you know, like there was so much content. What was the thing that we missed that you wish we all knew about?
My demo. It was no, I mean, usually I'm very humble, but legit, Keith, it was the shit. Like, everything. I mean, if there is 15 minutes of Ignite that you can take in, it's that demo. Not everything else.
Actually, okay, the funniest thing about that demo was Ryan's like, let's count, and none of us can count. Every 2 seconds. So Ryan's like, let's count down. And he's like, number 2. And we're all like, what? He's like, you yell 4. We're like, oh, okay, 4.
7, Donna. I yelled 7.
Clay's counting like 2 minutes before everyone else. We're like, we need to rehearse this next time.
I was really excited for point 7.
So we need to rehearse our counting before we get in the front row and start yelling things.
Yeah. I mean, like, was it Keith that asked the question? I can't even remember now. No one asked. I'm just absorbed. wait, sorry. No, sorry. Who asked? Crazy I was?
What was your favorite thing that
Sorry. I remember we were talking about Clay at Ignite 2019 or something. No, actually, Keith, and the bit that I think you will love, if you look at our content, first of all, every developer in every session. It was low code, it was pro code, it was lots of things. It was actually really interesting to how we pivoted before. The other thing that our team put a lot of effort into this year, which was about not using contrived demos. We used like real customer scenarios. So like we tried to use like Virgin Atlantic and Team Rubicon. But we tried as hard as we possibly could to use like, here are real people using parts of these platforms. And I think like honestly, that at least for me as a product team, it felt like a different to previous years where we used to be very feature specific. We would demo a feature and like that would be it. This year we tried really hard to go, let's demo a scenario, let's demo the platform, and let's pivot it from a customer perspective. So like if you're gonna look at the Ignite content, I would hope, apart from me yelling 7 randomly during sessions and then Donna telling me to shut up. The other thing I would try and take from that is that like there are some actually really good scenarios in it.
Just for that reason alone, I'd like to humbly and personally welcome Donna to the Careful.
But it does fit. She was sitting behind me when I randomly yelled 7 during Ryan's presentation when it was not warranted or asked for. Donna was the one that politely pointed out to me I should not be yelling at that part of the presentation.
Please don't make fun of Clay for his rare form of mathematical terms.
Yeah. Instead, Ryan changed the slide and I said, 7! 7!
How did you all get kicked out of the hotel property?
7!
There's that guy from the oil
We're all
company
gonna be sleeping on the
fell out of his chair. Yeah. There's this dude who's demoing his thing right after Clay, and he was sitting next to Clay, and when Clay yelled 7, he like fell out of his chair. He's like, what's going on? So we successfully scared that nice man.
Yeah. Whatever 0.7 was really good.
Yeah.
So we have a pretty good question here. What about Power Platform and Azure integration services service together? API management, service bus, event, and logic.
We're a long ways from that, dude.
That's like asking
from Frederick.
This is definitely a thing we are starting to invest a lot more in, and we actually just started shipping direct integration between the Azure SQL management experience in Azure and PowerAddicts. So now you can do the automatic app from data direct from inside SQL. You can start to build flows with templates specific to SQL, direct from the SQL experience. That's just one little toe in the water of expanding that out to a lot more of the Azure services. So we are starting to see an increasing amount of people realize, you know what, I just get a lot more out of the stuff I have in Azure if I can make stuff on top of it easier and faster. That's a thing we're starting to invest a lot in. So I think we do want to hear loud and clear from this community. Where should we go next? Is it APIM? Is it Cosmos DB? Like where's the place where you most want to make it really easy to start to automate and build stuff on top of outside of Azure?
It's Clippy popping up in Excel and saying, "Hey, it looks like you're trying to build an app with VBA. Don't do that. Here's the Power Platform."
Yes, except we're going to rename it Keithy.
With a space.
Wait, so Keith just explained about having, I asked him about that context of that question, saying that, explain to me.
So when you're in Azure SQL, you can create a Power App that says, do you want to create a Power
So
App
having a button from there to be able to click, okay, that's cool.
So I have a follow-up question on that. Is that only available on a certain region? I do not see it on my, or on the Azure portal region that I've created or subscription that I have, to be able to see the button to click and create a Power App using Azure SQL as the data source?
Within your SQL management experience, it is rolling out in phases. The Azure portal is very incremental about how they roll things out, and they do a lot of A/B testing. So you may be a B and not an A, but it should be live for everybody pretty soon here within the next few weeks.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. That's good to know. Thanks.
Comment and question from Mariano. Again, let's get back to basics. How about we improve the ISV story by investing more in solutions and making it easy to get to the app source?
Yeah. The app source is a strange and wonderful destination that people have to earn the right to get to. No, I'm being glib. We definitely are also working on that, and actually part of what we've been doing with improving Solution Checker and now using that as the framework for listing things on AppSource, improving solutions themselves. There's a lot of work going in under the hood to make that really work end to end. And you can now automate, solution checks as you're building things out of Azure DevOps if you're using that. And we're really doing a lot of work, particularly to close the gaps around Flow and Canvas apps and solutions together, so you can put a whole thing up there. We got a lot of feedback last week, actually, about AppSource itself. Very open to input about for people who are trying to build things and list it publicly, what your experience has been, what you wish it would be.
I think that conversation also that I kind of had the same question when I was at Ignite. There's not a lot of documentation around it. It's kind of like, oh, it's available. here's a few things to do, but actually trying to put something in there, there's no way to kind of test or see what the experience is like besides reading documentation. So definitely.
And if I may add to the conversation, I think now that we have RPA embedded in Flow, it's a lot easier to do test automation cases now that not only test the dev process, but also test the functionality of Power Apps applications. So that's something that I would actually really strongly want to see all the way through that whole ISV story, because it seems like you guys have actually invested a lot of time on the citizen developers concept, but not much on the ISV story, and you have a big swath of people who feel left out at this point.
Yeah. So then there's two things there, Mariano. We're about to roll out the test framework for Power Apps, which is basically like RPA but on Canvas apps. You can run through a process, it will record it for you. You can use expressions, and then you can rerun it as a test case. Okay. So we're about, so you don't have to use RPA. We're about to roll out a test framework targeted at Power Apps. It'll be Canvas apps first. We'll roll out to model driven apps second.
That was my best thing. I think, Mike, that.
Yeah. Like it and the model tools, like we completely acknowledge that's the gap at the moment. On the solution awareness, I just want to throw in again, not trying to dominate the community call, but like the solution awareness is really important to us. We have so much work at the moment planned to improve it. The other thing, just to give you an idea of how important it is, we have a feature at the moment in the wings around like component libraries and improvements of how you deal with Canvas components. The reason it is not released at the moment is because we are finishing the solution awareness work. And we don't want to release anything at the moment that doesn't have full solution awareness enabled.
Yeah. Okay.
So like it is definitely something for our team that we're like pushing them on, focusing them on. Yes, we have some history to catch up on, but like for new things, we're definitely trying to not introduce new debt.
Sounds good.
We're not bringing things to GA anymore unless they can be fully ALM and lifecycle managed all the way, which will slow it down a bit, but it's the right thing to do.
That's okay. That's good. I think that's a good thing to do. But, you know.
Over the last couple of days, we've noticed something turning up in Flow. I know you guys don't, Power Automate. And I know you guys don't. You don't talk much about that because you're Power Apps, but there was a solution turned up.
Clayman,
he's here in the hotel. Let me go get him.
That thing is literally one.
You'll be down here in a minute. Environments,
the Flow, there's a new Flow solution turned up in our environments, and I just wondered what that was about. A Power App, a Flow, Microsoft Flow checker thing. It's got some like runs in it and some binary objects and things. What's that all about?
So we're increasingly shipping features ourselves as solutions on top of base CDS environments. And so so we're eating our own dog food on that front, but using that as a way to layer capabilities on top of the base CDS. We'll only do that for features that everybody should have access to. But you will see some of those artifacts show up in the environment. So that's sort of the moral equivalent to the Power Apps checker or the solution checker for Flow specifically.
And the other bit I get there is I know while things coming into the solution list can be potentially scary, and it's growing, but we're still following no, don't give me sass, Kate. We still follow a really hard line internally of nothing end user disruptive.
Yeah.
So the things that will go into that list will be potentially tools and features for the maker, but we're still holding a hard line on what gets released to the end user in April and October. So like I mean, like, the alternative is if we ship nothing for most of the year, which I don't think anyone wants. So, like, I get that there's, like, solutions that appear as we release things, but hopefully they're documented, they're labeled, they're in a clear way that you know what they are. And then from our side, we're sort of making the rule that they're not going to disrupt an end user. It's only going to be your makers or your admins that's going to see a new feature available.
It's an explicit goal of the team to disrupt Keith as often as possible.
Literally, that's how I'm like performance managing my team this year, is disruptions to Keith. Yeah. They're doing really well.
There are a bunch of questions on Power Virtual Agents from Uday. I think Chuck has been answering to those. There was one question on Forms Pro surveys being a part of solution. I think, yeah, any thoughts on that?
I mean,
there will be solution before we go generally.
Okay. And all right, I think we are about, so I think
I have one last question. This is
Yeah,
a
go
question
ahead.
I get asked at almost every app in a day that I've done. So are there any plans to improve the app sharing with multiple groups like SharePoint groups, for example? I know today you can share your apps with 80 groups. You can type in individual users or come up with a comma delimited list of emails.
Yeah.
But I think SharePoint groups is something that most of the attendees have asked about. Like that is hard to add because then you end up adding each user one by one.
Yeah.
Just actually done some testing on this as part of the work we did to let it guest access. But we call them Office Modern groups internally. I don't know what legacy groups were, why they're modern or Officey, but that's what they're called. So it turns out almost everything already works there, and there's just a couple bugs we have to tidy up.
Oh, awesome.
It's not one of Clay's features, which is why he's rolling his eyes, but Evan's team.
no, sorry. I'm rolling my eyes because someone on my team just sent me an IM of a photo of a tweet that's a translation from Hero that translates to Clay's voice is huge.
That is true. That is true.
It is a This is there is okay. We'll roll that out. Yes.
But yes, Ethan, to your question, modern groups are coming soon.
That's awesome.
think-
Thank you.
I
Now
think
I'll
that
have an
would-
answer next time somebody asks me. It's coming.
Yes.
I think that would help on Teams as well, right? I mean, basically Teams, SharePoint, yeah. So, all right, we are about.
We have to do this today because we hand over to SharePoint for embedded forms the ability to go control all security and access to the embedded app. But that's a special case for the embedded forms. So we're really just debugging how to genericize that.
Okay.
Right, we are about towards the end of our call today. Just wanted to say thank you to everyone for joining. And before we wrap up, Geeta, if you want to share our December show.
Yes. So December marks our 1-year anniversary of the hashtag PowerAddicts. I think we can't believe it's been a year since we've all been through this journey, and we've just been absolutely. It's just absolutely amazing to see how this whole crazy bunch has grown. It's a bunch of weirdos, crazy folks, getting ready to try all of this fun stuff. And so we have some really fun stuff planned for the December Hangout. And we want to make sure that we celebrate it with each and every one of you. So don't miss out on it. And we can't wait to celebrate this and also, enable others and pay it forward and keep growing.
Can I add just one more thing? I think that it's great that we will be a year, right? But we wouldn't be this year if it wasn't for Samir and the team who kind of put us together. So, the thing about the Power Addicts is that it's when you put a bunch of people together and the energy and the brain power and juices just start flowing and working. And I remember the first time we all came together. It was Keith, Vivek, and myself, and a few other people. We had this conversation, but we would not have been together if it wasn't for Samir putting together the MBAS lunch. So, Samir, from my heart, man, thank you so much.
Yeah, he truly changed.
I fully take the credit.
Thank you. Thanks.
All right.
Video was
Thank-
exciting for me. Watching the video, watching Vivek speak up there in Satya's keynote. Yeah.
Yeah. Thankfully, I wore the PowerAddicts t-shirt then.
And I want one quick thing. While Vivek was being shown in Satya's keynote, I get a message from Vivek saying, I'm standing in the back of the line to get into James Phillips's session. Is there anywhere I can get ahead of the line? Yeah, you're on Satya's keynote. I think we can do that.
All right. Thank you, everyone. See
All right,
you
thanks,
next
everyone.
month.
See you next month.
Bye,
Bye.
guys.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You stopped?
Not yet.
Sorry, I have a question.
Come on.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Hello, hello guys.
Okay.
Hello guys.